Hi everybody. Really glad to be here. And I appreciate your taking the time to come listen to me and ask some questions and engage in a dialogue, because I really am very committed to the Montgomery College mission, and I really delight in seeing all the students in the neighborhood and at the campuses across the county. And it's just very special to be here to talk with you, get to know you a little bit, and tell you a little bit about the work that I'm doing. I was asked to talk about making a difference, careers in public service. So I thought I would relay to you a little bit about my own experience and the jobs that I have taken over the course of my, my career so far. I'm 38 years old, so my career is still, you know, at the front end, I suppose. But I wanted to just walk through you my path, because I thought maybe there's some insight that you would find, or something that you would find relevant to your own life. But before I start, I wanted to just say thank you to the college for fulfilling the educational mission so superbly. This college creates opportunity for so many people in Montgomery County. And I really am proud that our college has insisted that every student from every background, even students who are undocumented, if they can pay tuition, they can attend college. And it doesn't have to be out-of-state tuition if they live in Montgomery County. And I really am, as a county council member, I'm gonna stand behind that and fight to make sure that we preserve that educational access, because I think anybody who wants to get an education should have the opportunity to do so. So thank you to Brad for your leadership here at the college, and to Darion Pollard, who I've gotten to know a bit. Really just appreciative of all of the great school that you have. My passion for social justice is what has animated my career choices, and it's rooted in my life experiences growing up in Oakland, California, which is where I'm from, born and raised there. And Oakland, California, particularly in the 70s and 80s, not unlike Washington, D.C., or a lot of urban areas, was a community that was very divided. There was a lot of conflict. It was at times, you know, a very difficult environment for people. And there was a real sense as a young person that I was born into a world where some people had opportunity and a lot of people didn't. And not only that, but my parents were very politically involved. And they taught me from an early age that what the government does makes a big difference in whether people have the opportunity to succeed in life, whether they have education, whether they have safe streets, whether they have a decent income. That, you know, we all have solutions on our own as individuals, but what government does is very powerful and very important. And I grew up during the era when Ronald Reagan took power, and I remember walking to the polls with my mom, you know, when she was going to vote for Jimmy Carter, and then enduring the next 8 years of dinner table conversations about, you know, how much damage Ronald Reagan was doing to the country. But you know, I learned a lot, and it excited me about politics and social change, and I came to believe that that was something I was really interested in. During college, I would say I was, you know, like many of you perhaps, couldn't decide from day to day whether I wanted to go into law or finance or economics or what have you. You know, every week there was a new career I wanted to pursue and a new dream that I wanted to chase. But sort of by accident, I found out about an internship in Washington, D.C. And it had a modest stipend with it, which was quite unusual, and I applied, and I got the internship. So from the University of California at Santa Cruz, I came out to D.C. in 1993. And I worked at an organization that focused on issues like Social Security and Medicare and disability policy. And at the time, there was this growing political fight about the future of programs that social insurance programs that help people when they retire or become disabled. And a lot of people were saying that young people are getting ripped off by these programs, and programs that help seniors are coming at the expense of our children. And we've got to, you know, get rid of Social Security and slash Medicare, because we can't afford these. And I felt very strongly in the organization that I was getting involved with, you know, was very engaged in, explaining that when young people, when their grandparents are taken care of, a family might have more resources to pay for tuition for a kid's education. That when a young person's own family is insecure at any age range, then that young person is insecure. And it has an effect all through the generations. But more relevant, what I saw was a chance to make a difference. I saw that there was a need for young people to get involved on that issue and to advocate to protect these really important programs. Without Social Security, half of all seniors would be in poverty. But actually, 3 million children even collect Social Security because one of their parents has died or become disabled. And so I felt that I could, if I were to figure out how to create a voice, to get other young people involved, to do some research and advocacy, which I was learning about by being an intern in an organization that did research and advocacy, that maybe I could make a difference. And if I could make a difference, isn't that what I wanted to do? So I went back to college to finish up, and it was interesting because before I did my internship, I wouldn't say I was the most serious student. I enjoyed college, but the social aspect was just as much part of what I was interested in as the academics. But after I did my internship, I really found a new purpose, and I found that I really wanted to succeed in school and achieve some academic success, because I understood why, and I understood an application. I saw jobs in Washington. I saw really powerful ways to get involved that did depend a little bit on having some academic success. So I went back to school. I did much better in my studies, graduated, and I was offered a position back at the organization where I had done my internship. It was a very short-term job. It was kind of just a let's get Hans out here and see what he can do kind of job, which I was very lucky to get. So I came out, and from there I started to work for an organization that was a coalition. It was a man named Arthur Fleming who was the chair of this coalition. And Dr. Fleming had actually worked for the Roosevelt administration. He was 90 years old when I started to work for him. It was really amazing. He had been in the Eisenhower administration. He'd actually worked for every presidential administration except for Reagan since Roosevelt. And he had actually gotten into a fight with Reagan over civil rights issues and was kicked out of the role of the chairman of the Civil Rights Commission. So I worked for him, and at this coalition, all of the organizations that are involved in public welfare issues like healthcare and welfare and Social Security, they were all involved in this coalition. So it was unions and retiree groups and women's groups and civil rights groups. And I had the chance to be the staffer. And that was incredibly exciting because I was able to meet so many people. And I was able to begin to establish a network of organizations and individual leaders that I still today, and this was in 1995, is still a vital part of my career. Everything I've ever done, can be traced back to support from many of the people that I met in that very first job in 1995. So Dr. Fleming passed while I was working for him. He, as I said, was 90. But while I was working for him, he encouraged me to pursue my interest, my passion in having a voice for young people that could talk about why Social Security is a critical program for the future of the country. And so I started a nonprofit organization. And I really had no idea how to do that. I had never started a nonprofit organization before. And looking back on it, at least I would say at the time that my experience was sort of like writing a paper in college, which is a skill I learned in college, how to write a paper. Except for instead of getting a B+ or something like that, I got $40,000 from a foundation to put someone on payroll and begin to do work. So I found that the skills that I learned in school were immediately relevant to something that I wanted to do. But I started this nonprofit. It was called the 2030 Center. And we brought together young people who were in leadership positions around Washington organizations. They were young staffers at various groups that engaged young people as well. And we all got together to come up with a kind of an agenda and to release studies and to talk to reporters and to go on TV and to try to have a voice for young people saying, hey, our economic future is really important. And we need the government to focus on investing in education and creating jobs and preserving our environment, and not try to tear down programs like Social Security and Medicare, which are actually important to us. So that was a really exciting thing. And looking back on it, what I knew at the time, but it goes ever more clear as I work through. There was really a need to have, from the Democratic Party and from progressive politics, there was really a need to have a voice for young people in this coalition. Because without young people saying the future, Social Security is part of the future, everyone could say, well, look, this was great, it worked for the past, but this is not part of the future. We can live without this going forward. And the fact that we were providing that necessary piece of the puzzle led to all kinds of wonderful things, because the Democratic Party needed our voice. So I was invited to speak at the Democratic National Convention in 2000. I was invited to testify on panels with the president and the vice president at the White House, which is like really just an awe-inspiring experience. And I was invited to testify to Congress. Other people on the staff were invited to testify to Congress. All the organizations wanted to work with us. So because we were able to really identify a niche and an opportunity and a way to add value to the broader progressive coalition, we were sought after, and our participation was supported. Organizations gave us money. That's how we built up the strength of our organization. So a lot of what I learned through that was to focus on making an impact and to build the network of people that I was involved with and that I could help and then could help me. And that really has just, every position I've ever had has turned out to involve with the people that I've gotten to know and the support that I provided for them and then the support that they provided for me. And it's a continuing, evolving, growing, going phenomenon. From the 2030 Center, after about 4 years of doing that, almost 5 years of doing that, I knew that I didn't want to do it anymore, that it couldn't last forever, and that I ought to give somebody a chance to sustain the organization, which I did, but it didn't quite work out. Most importantly, I knew that the fight over Social Security was going to move to a new level after Bush took the election in 2000. And that what was really needed was the coalition that I had staffed in 1995 needed to be reorganized and revived, and it needed to be run very aggressively. And I had helped to reestablish it from my role at the 2030 Center. But after that election, I knew Bush was going to come after Social Security. And so where I could make a difference, and really I had been so focused, so laser focused on how to protect Social Security. I knew where I could make a difference was going back to help organize and run a coalition campaign against the Bush agenda to privatize Social Security. So in 2001, I went to the organization called the Campaign for America's Future, which had really mentored me and had helped me connect with funders. It had helped me connect with academics. It was a mentoring organization, and there were leaders in that organization who were my personal mentors. And they brought me in to organize and run this coalition campaign. And we fought very aggressively against the Bush White House. And I think ultimately, laid the groundwork for that great fight in 2005 when the Democratic Party and the Progressive Coalition dealt President Bush a significant defeat and ultimately unraveled his presidency on the issue of his attempt to privatize Social Security. So at this point, I was feeling that, I never would have imagined when I first started to get interested in issues about young people and Social Security that it would lead to playing a small role in taking on a president of the United States and undermining the political prospects of the Republican Party and helping the Democratic Party advance its mission and trying to build a progressive majority for social change in this country. But I knew that's what I wanted to do, and those were the kinds of things that I wanted to affect. And when I always thought about my jobs and my career, the things that I really wanted to do were help protect Social Security and help build a progressive majority. Help reverse the problems that I had seen when Reagan built a conservative majority and took the government and changed our policies and I thought really harmed people's lives. I wanted to build a progressive majority. So through that work on Social Security, I felt that I was able to make some difference on that. But after the 2002 election, I also felt that that work that I had done, I kind of, I'd taken it as far as I could take it. And I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life either. And I wanted to do something very different. So one of the people that had helped me found the 2030 Center was a good friend of mine. And she had become the executive director of Rock the Vote, which is an organization that engages young people in the political process. It's based in Los Angeles, works at the music industry. And she asked me to open up the Washington office for Rock the Vote. So I thought that was a great opportunity to do something totally different and have almost nothing to do with anything issue-wise that I had done. But it was a great opportunity to be creative. And what I had enjoyed about the 2030 Center and the issues was a sense of entrepreneurialism and a sense that I was creating something out of nothing. That was really a motivating factor for me. And I felt that Rock the Vote was something that was so outside the box. It's a household name, it's a youth brand, it's exciting, that I would have something I could really sink my teeth into and work on it in a different way. So that was in 2003. And boy, the 2004 election was a really wild ride. Francine mentioned that one of the things we did was we focused our efforts on the internet and promoting voter registration online. And we were able to register about 1 million young people. And another thing we did, which was kind of like, well, at the time was the escalation of the Iraq War. And a lot of us felt that the Bush-Iraq policy was unsustainable and that taken to its logical conclusion would require more troops than our army, our military could sustain. And there's a plausible case that a military draft could be required. And so we felt that this was a legitimate consequence of our foreign policy and something that people should discuss. And so we did some ads about the military draft and whether how you voted in the election might affect whether there was a draft. And we did some very innovative internet campaign strategies. And all those people that we had registered to vote, about 1 million of them, we had an email for. And towards the end of the election, we sent out a fake draft card. It was obviously fake, but it said, "You've been drafted." And when we sent out that email, boy, it was like we had grabbed the third rail on the metro system, and we were just like, our hair was burning, and everything just turned on fire. And immediately, the press started to focus on this issue. And we forced President Bush to begin to address the issue. And reporters started to ask him questions about it in presidential debates. And I think John Kerry even took it to him a little bit on that. And it became a real issue in the campaign. And I was so, although Kerry lost for reasons having to do, I think, more with his candidacy than anything else, but in the aftermath of the election, the manager of the Bush campaign was giving a speech at the Kennedy School at Harvard. And he said, all those big groups that the liberals organized, they didn't really they didn't make a big difference. But there were one or two things that really made a difference that we couldn't deal with. And one of them was this military draft campaign that MTV's Rock the Vote did. So I felt that was a pretty good validation of our sense of the power of that potential strategy. Didn't do, young people turned out to vote in higher numbers in that election, but the records show that young people were also the only group that John Kerry won. So, it's kind of hard to become the president if you can't win anybody over the age of 30. So, after 2004, I had actually moved to Silver Spring, just up the street. And I wouldn't say on a whim, but without incredible amount of forethought, decided to run for the Montgomery County Council. This was 2005, 2006, which was a time of incredible, a rising progressive wave of participation. And I don't know if any of you live in this part of the county, but there's a local state senator named Jamie Raskin. Anybody heard of Jamie Raskin? Raise your hand. A couple people, I mean. So Jamie Raskin ran a campaign for state senate. And the wave of enthusiasm and excitement about his progressive message was amazing. He would ask people to come out and wave signs on the street, and like 300 people would show up. And he was going up against an incumbent who some people felt was out of touch and who had supported the Iraq War. And Jamie had made that a big issue in the campaign. So I remember thinking to myself at the time, you know, I have never seen such a hunger for real people to get involved in politics and to take control of their government and to take it back from the destructive Bush-era conservative government that has done so much damage to our country. And the reason why I raise that is because while that didn't really help me much in my campaign, because I couldn't figure out how to tap into that, I ran for the county council. Well, I'll just divert into my quick county council story in 2006. I ran for the county council from this part of the county. And the theory of my race was it's going to be a crowded primary. And in a crowded primary, the person who runs the best campaign can win. And the fact that I don't know that many people and I haven't lived here that long and so forth, you know, won't matter. The problem was that a woman named Valerie Irvin got in the race, and everybody else in the race got out because they were afraid of her. And it just left me and her. And boy, she whooped me pretty bad. But I got to know her very well afterwards, and we've become very good friends. And she supported me very, very heavily in my recent run. So in any event, I didn't win that race, but I saw brewing at the grassroots level an enthusiasm about politics that I'd never seen before. Meanwhile, I had gotten to know State Senator Barack Obama. One of my best pieces of advice to you is pick the right spouse. Because my wife used to run the Congressional Black Caucus's political committee. And I remember one day she came home and said, you know, there's this guy, he's running for the Senate in Illinois, doesn't have a prayer of winning, but he is the most amazing thing I've ever seen, and I'm going to do everything I can to help him, and you got to check him out. So his name was Barack Obama. And I got to see him, you know, in action up close. I got to know him a little bit when he was running for the Senate. And I still remember, like, I saw him outside of the Staples Center in Boston before he gave that great speech at the Democratic Convention. You know, we become sort of chummy. So after my defeat in the, you know, the minor skirmish of the County Council of District 5, we found out that Barack Obama was going to run for president. And the wave of excitement about progressive politics that I had seen, you know, here at home was showing up everywhere. And the reason why Barack Obama knew that he could win is because he was saying it. He was out speaking at these events. I heard when he went to Tennessee, 10,000 people came up to see him speak in Tennessee, which is just, you know, unfathomable. And it was like that all the way across the country. And somehow his people, they knew. They were so smart that they could understand, you know, something deeper, something bigger is going on. And our guy, Barack Obama, you know, is the perfect messenger for this mission of change. So he ran, and because I had gotten to know people who were the kind of people that got involved in presidential campaigns, that network building that I had done, you know, I knew who to go to. And they asked me to be the National Youth Vote Director, which built very, you know, naturally on my experience at Rock the Vote. So I moved out to Chicago right after my wife became pregnant, which, you know, only for Barack Obama, I guess is what I would say. We had a long-distance pregnancy for her. So I moved out to Chicago, a city that I've always wanted to live in, and got a chance to work on a presidential campaign, which, you know, really one of the greatest privileges of my life, without a doubt, was the chance to encourage young people to vote for Barack Obama. And honestly, I mean, how hard can that be, right? It was, you know, he was the perfect candidate. But the skills that I had learned, and you know, the tools that I had developed about organizing and advocacy and how to get people involved, the internet campaigns I had done, you know, all of that came into play, and I was able to help the campaign do a much more effective job getting young people involved. we focused in this campaign, as you probably remember, in Iowa. And everything was about Iowa. And the joke on the campaign was you couldn't go to the bathroom if you couldn't explain to the campaign manager how it was going to help win Iowa. You know, I had to spend 50% of my time. That was my own arrangement. I had to spend 50% of my time every day helping win in Iowa, which was a very regimented approach. And it was the kind of approach that all the staff were required to have, so that you knew you were applying yourself to the strategy for victory. Some of the things that I had, the relationships that I had built at Rock the Vote came into play. I was talking with the former chairman of Rock the Vote, and he said something about how, you know, all the young people, they're all Barack stars. And I was like, oh, that is great. So we created this program in Iowa for high school students, and we called them the Barack Stars. And that got a lot of attention, and it was really, it helped create the kind of cool kid vibe that, you know, getting into the Iowa caucus was what all the cool kids were doing. And in fact, we really focused in that strategy on high school students, which had never been done successfully. But we realized that high school students were actually a hidden key to winning the Iowa caucus. And I will say, I believe, and I know it's true, that the high school class of 2008 in Iowa is, in my opinion anyway, probably the single most important factor in the fact that Barack Obama became president ultimately. And that sounds like an exaggeration, but we knew that if we won Iowa, we were going to win subsequent early states, and that was going to catapult us to victory. And I always believed that winning the general was going to be a lot easier than winning the primary, which of course it was by a long shot. So the most important thing was winning Iowa. And then you look at all the ingredients in Iowa and how did we win Iowa, and high school students and college students and young people were absolutely critical. In fact, just the high school student vote, I think, alone, or the under 30 vote, was as much as his whole margin of victory. Now, he could have won without them if everything else had gone right, but the point is they were critical. So, one of the things that I was able to do that was really amazing was develop that program in Iowa. Some of the people that I got to know at Rock the Vote created the Yes We Can video. You guys remember that? You know, that was something that I had a finger in, you know, from a distance. So all these things kind of just, they weave together. When you have a network, when you build a network, when you find people that you like to work with, they weave together. After a year in the campaign, my son was 3 months. My wife had generously moved out to Chicago, you know, for her maternity leave. Then we picked up the Mustang and we drove to New Hampshire, and then she came home and I drove down to South Carolina. And in all truth, as much fun as I was having, I was pretty miserable being that far away from my kid and from my wife, and I felt like I had done it long enough. And I remember that a lot of people that I had trusted as my mentors kept telling me that, you know, don't ever forget the most important thing is your family. And that's really, at the end of the day, it's the only thing that actually counts, and it's the thing you'll really take with you. And so I had taken that to heart, and I decided that while some people might have continued for another year on the campaign, bouncing around the country, that's not what I wanted to do. So I came home and ended up working at an organization called AARP, which you might have heard of. It provides insurance. It's also an advocacy organization. It's for people who are 50 and over. AARP is a huge, large organization, very powerful. And AARP is a place where you can't succeed unless you know how to work with other people. And that's a really important skill set. And it's something I was able to work on, because up until then, I'd say my focus was on, hey, I'm the entrepreneur. I'm the one creating something new, you know, so I know what's best. And that doesn't always work. And there's environments where you also need to know how to say, hey, I only know a little piece of what's best. But if all of us sit together and we all put our little pieces together, then we're really going to come up with something. And that's a different approach. That's the collaborative skill set that is so important to today's economy. And I would urge you all to think about, you know, how that will affect you, because that's really where everything is going. It's all about networks. There's too much for anybody to know. But if we all get together, we can know. I've worked at AARP for about a year and a half, 2 years, close to 2 years. And then in the meantime, I decided I was going to run for council again. Oh, and I wanted to just finish by saying, or tie it up by saying, the grassroots enthusiasm that I saw right here at home for Jamie Raskin is exactly the movement that is what elected Barack Obama. So that was a unique moment in time. It was a phenomenon that was of the people. You know, this was something that people were feeling, and Barack Obama understood it and presented the right solution for it, and it propelled him into office. So subsequently, I ran for the county council. It was a difficult decision to figure out if I was going to do it. It was a big risk. It's one thing to lose once. It's another thing to lose twice. You don't want to do that. So thought it through, and I decided, you know, I wasn't sure if I could win or lose. I thought I could probably win, but I was sure going to enjoy the campaign. And the one thing I walked away, or one of the things I walked away from my first campaign was, although I lost, it was the most exciting experience of my life. It's just thrilling. I encourage everyone to run for public office. Truly, you've got to run. Even if you don't win, it will change your life for the better. But it's really a privilege. All you do when you run for office is you talk to people. That's what you do when you're in public office. You work with people. You help people every day. That's all you're there for, is to be accessible to the community and useful to people in meeting their needs. It's a real privilege. So I ran for the council again, and I ran for one of the at-large spots. There were 4 at-large seats on the Montgomery County Council. All 4 incumbents were running again. And I wasn't sure, I wasn't sure how it was going to go. And from day to day, I wasn't sure who was going to win or who was going to lose. But as time went on, I was pretty sure I was going to win. And I didn't, we'll see who loses, but I know I'm going to win. So I won't get too much into the details, but long and short is, obviously I won. I finished second, which is, pretty striking considering there were 4 incumbents. It's hard to beat an incumbent. I beat 3 of them, and one of them didn't get enough votes, had to stay home. And the other 4 of us are all, the 4 of us are all on the county council. My work there is absolutely thrilling. It's different. I've never done anything quite like this. One week my job is to attack Pepco and make them pay. Force them to pay attention to the residents of this county and change what they are doing, because I truly believe that we in this county are victims of corporate malpractice, and it is absolutely unacceptable. And so, all the campaigns that I had done, advocating for social change, advocating for Social Security, how to build towards a goal, came into play with, are in play with something like Pepco. And it's, how do you figure out how to make them change their way when they have all the power? So my focus has been, Pepco wants a rate increase. Have you heard that? It's pretty surprising that they would have the temerity to, request a rate increase, given that they've spent the money we provide them so badly. But in fact, they're presenting a plan, a somewhat tepid plan to improve their service, and they have said that they want a rate increase in order to pay for it. What we found out, we did some research, we found out that Pepco is hugely profitable. And actually, over a 5-year period, while their service was falling into the floor, their top 5 CEOs made $57 million. Yeah, $57 million for their top 5 CEOs who have a government-guaranteed monopoly. They can't go out of business. They have profits that are set by a regulatory agency, so they really can't lose business. And yet somehow are paid as though they're running a company like Google or Intel, where at any moment they could go out and a competitor could overtake them. These guys have no competitors. It's illegal for them to have competitors, and yet they are compensated as though they are in a very dangerous business. I think that's really unacceptable, and so we have been hitting them as hard as we can. And our objective is to take that rate increase off the table and to make them pay. And they should pay to get our service back where it needs to be. And when it's where the level it should be, if they want to ask for a rate increase then, then we can talk. But don't ask us to pay for it. So that's the kind of issue. Now, I've never done anything on an electricity regulation or utility industry, issues before. The county council is really exciting because on any given day, yesterday I had to figure out what's your opinion on roadside solicitation and whether we should ban people asking for money or selling flowers or the firefighters who do the Fill the Boot campaign. Shoot, I don't know. I mean, I never thought about this before in my life. How am I supposed to know, right? That's how I feel. But nevertheless, I have to make up my mind, and I have to use, the collaborative skills that I've learned and the research skills that I've learned, and so forth to, to figure out an answer. So I will, at the question time, we can maybe focus more on the county council issues. But I guess I just wanted to kind of leave you with some thoughts about what I think are keys to success. The first thing I would say is really doing an excellent job. You got to have a commitment to excelling. You don't have to be the best, but you have to have a commitment to excelling. And if you do, in whatever it is that you do, the rest will take care of itself. I guarantee you that. Now, in my opinion, in order to really excel, you got to be passionate about what you're doing. Whether that's engineering or public policy. You have to really want to get up every morning and make that the best day of your life, and have no regrets when you go to sleep that you didn't do everything that you would do if you died tomorrow, and you can have that job whether your job is, whatever your job is, make it something that you believe in. Really, it's important to figure out how to be valuable. People around you have to say, boy, if that person wasn't here doing that work, then we'd be missing something that we need. And that was my experience when I was the young person working on Social Security. All these, powerful organizations said, we need him. He's creating value. You've got to figure out how to create value and be irreplaceable. That's a tough thing, but that is truly essential to long-term success. I would definitely say that you got to be flexible, you got to experiment, and you got to know that sometimes you're going to figure out what you want to do by doing things that you don't want to do. You think you might want to go into business, and you work in business, and you find out business is not for me. That's great. Now you can just check that off and go do something else. So don't be afraid to pursue something that you might find out in the end is not what you're really interested in, because you won't know. Another thing I'd say, and this is a little self-serving, but being really smart is only one skill. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. Thank God for me. Really more important, and being smart is a good skill. It's better if you are the smartest person in the room, I suppose. But you don't have to be, because if you have a commitment to excellence, if you really do the best job possible, if you find mentors who can help you, if you build a network of people for yourself, there are hundreds of ways to succeed. And I would say I've been in a lot of jobs where I often think, boy, I didn't go to that school and get that degree, and I don't have that ability. How am I going to do this? But the fact is, if you're creative, if you know how to make value, that's what really counts. That's how you make a difference. If you know how to work well with other people on common goals, that's what really makes a difference. If you know how to take a risk and create opportunity, that is what makes a difference. If you've got self-confidence, if you're willing to pursue your goal, your dream, if you have a passion and motivation, there's 100 ways to get there. And all of these things really make a difference. So now I'll turn it back to questions and say if any of you are interested in interning, my council office is seeking interns. My policy aide, Val Carranza, is sitting here, and we'll have a sign up. We'd love to get a chance to get to know you, work with us on issues in front of the county, and maybe get you started on your career. So thanks very much for your time. We really appreciate it.